I dream and the world trembles.
Hey guys, it's Lon Measley. So, some people considered Battle for Azeroth Profession system as a disaster, and I think this is mainly because the barriers to entry are so low, in that without even leveling your character in BFA, you can easily get your professions maxed out, and you can learn most of your recipes from the trainers instead of having to quest for them like we did in Legion. And combined with the fact that Expulsom as a gate to crafting is much easier to get than Blood of Sargeras was. So what we're actually seeing now is people trying to cash in but causing the market to flood with all these crafted items. But despite all this, I think if you have the right planning and strategy, you can still make a lot of gold. And in my opinion, the key to making gold in this expansion is to collect your rank 3s as soon as possible. Since these typically require high reputation levels, rank 3 recipes are much more difficult to get than the previous ranks, and make the crafting cost significantly lower. Low enough to differentiate yourself and make yourself competitive amongst the plebs. Next, there are still some recipes that don't have ranks at all, and not all of them will be profitable, but there are some that I will highlight later in this video. So for any level 120 characters you currently have, you'll want to focus on the reputations that'll get you the rank 3 recipes for any crafting professions that make consumables for raids and mythic plus. Unfortunately, for gear crafting professions, unless Blizzard releases a patch with some more competitive crafted gear, it's not looking like these professions will be able to make much gold after these mythic pluses and raids come out. Finally, as a reminder of what actual recipes you want to be focusing on and what to actually craft, here's a list for you to pause and look at. Oh, and by the way, number 4, the War Scrolls are a new type of consumable that came with BFA that either increases your attack power, intellect, or stamina depending on the type, but is weaker than any class buff of the same stat. So it's only useful as a filler if, say, you don't have a certain class in a dungeon. Now, let's look at which BFA factions reputations you'll need to get your respective rank 3 recipes. Actually, you'll find that each of the professions' recipes are pretty equally split amongst each of the reputations, except for the Champions of Azeroth, which doesn't give you any recipes, but is important for PvE nonetheless. But if gold making is your priority, then you wouldn't have to worry about that as much. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the Tortollan Seekers is the only other faction that doesn't sell a flask recipe, but has some other niche recipes like the Darkmoon Card of War rank 3, the Champions of Azeroth and Tortollan Seekers contracts recipes, and the Feast and Bounty rank 3 recipes for cooking. The last 4 factions are Alliance or Horde specific, but basically contain the same recipes. And like I said before, the recipes for each profession are pretty split across each of these factions. I'll leave a link down below so you can see for yourself what you need based on what professions you actually have. Now, for the second half of my video, I'm going to be talking about the recipes that don't have additional ranks and yet should still be in demand enough for you to be able to sell for a profit. So the first one is just all BFA Gems. You can learn every single recipe from the trainer. And there are no reputations and additional ranks to worry about unless you want to craft the gear, which probably won't be profitable anyway. So this actually makes BFA jewel crafting the perfect profession for an alt, as you don't even have to level up your character to be able to craft these gems. But the main challenge I think would be getting cheap raw materials, which you'll want to be on the constant lookout for on the auction house, or strike a deal with some of the gatherers on your server, or simply just have your own miner. Despite all of the negative comments I had about gear crafting professions, there actually is a use for them, which is crafting cheap items to get Expulsom from, or even enchanting materials from. Currently, the cheapest options for Expulsom for most people are tailoring or leatherworking bracers. Since there are no ranks associated with these cheap uncommon bracers, you can also just have these on an alt to help supply your main characters with Expulsom, as well as enchanting mats. And as for enchanting, there are these glove enchants that you can craft similar to the ones we had in Legion. But what's new in BFA is, aside from just having the enchants that increase your gathering speed, one that actually increases your crafting speed. And I'm pretty sure that the crafting one will be highly sought after, as it'll really save bulk crafters a lot of time. If you have enchanting on an alt, you can always consider sending your BOEs to that alt to disenchant for materials. as opposed to scrapping them for Expulsom, of course. Next, I want to talk about alchemy. While mainly known for flasks and potions, there are other things up alchemy's sleeve. That also makes it an excellent profession for alts, and even one to consider doubling up on. And the reason is because of transmutes. I haven't tested them all yet, but so far it looks like transmute meat to pet and transmute Expulsom are the big ones that you'll need to focus on. Note that these transmutes share a daily cooldown with their legion counterparts. So what you'll want to actually do is to keep your transmute meat to pet ticking on both the legion and the BFA side, then fill in the rest with Expulsom if you need it, or a different transmute depending on what's profitable. I've tried out herbs to ore so far and it's worked pretty well for me, though the profits aren't huge at all. Though the main one you want to make sure you do once every 7 days is definitely meat to pet. So you can get one of 4 pets from meat to pet, and if it's anything like legions, you'll be able to make a decent amount of gold from any of these pets, assuming their rates are about equal. Next, as for engineering, as usual you'll be able to make at least one mount with it, and as of now we have the Mega Mogul MK2, which has an unspecified drop rate from the mythic version of the final boss of the Motherlode instance. While this might not be as easy to get as some of the other recipes I've mentioned so far, you'll undoubtedly be able to make a lot of gold if you actually get it. And lastly, there seems to be another mount called the Zillowag ATV, which is supposed to have components from both engineering and blacksmithing, but how we can actually obtain this mount has not yet been revealed. I guess only time will tell. As I mentioned in part 1, there are these war scrolls that you can make with inscription, and the buffs they provide are not better than class buffs, but since they don't have any ranks, they could be a potentially good craft if you have inscription on any of your alts. Up next, we actually have follower equipment that most crafting professions can make, and they don't have any ranks as well, and require relatively low professions levels to craft, but actually a lot of materials and Expulsom. Some of the more interesting ones are the leatherworking and blacksmithing follower tokens that actually give you success chance on your missions, and another crafted by engineers that actually gives you azurite when you complete your missions. Finally, last but probably not least, I want to remind everyone serious about gold making to level cooking on their mains. All the rank 3 recipes can be obtained through world quests, except for that of the Banquet and the Feast, which come from the Tortolan Seekers faction. And that will be the end of my video. I hope you guys found it helpful, and if you did, make sure to leave me a like and subscribe to the channel, as well as hit the notification bell for more future videos just like this. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.